This is Will Power from Real Talk Baseball. I am currently just waiting on Javi. His laptop is updating currently, so he should be here any minute. Um, Looks like we don't have anyone viewing right now, but for anyone that does watch this, we're always available for you. You can email us at realtalkbaseball@yahoo.com. You can search for us on Instagram, Real Talk Baseball, no spaces, no special characters, and send us a message there. So, what we do on our show is we break down the top 12 players. We give our sleepers, our breakouts, our busts. Today, we're doing the catcher position, but if there's a player that you want us to do a deep dive into, and he's not part of our current show, you just drop us a message, and we can take care of that for you. I can either privately message you, or I could add it onto the show for the following week. So Carlos is not available today. His work schedule changed. What's up, Jasper? Glad you can make it. So since he's not able to make it on Friday nights, we actually decided to do the show a little bit earlier. So I think every week we're going to start between 5 and 6 o'clock. Most of the time at 6, but today being St. Patrick's Day, happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. We're actually going to do it a little bit earlier at 5 o'clock. So everyone's probably getting ready for their draft for their current fantasy baseball season. Again, if you guys have any questions, you can reach us at our email or Instagram page. It's realtalkbaseball@yahoo.com, and Instagram is Real Talk Baseball. We also have our live stream here on YouTube and on Facebook Live as well. So if you go over to Facebook and you search for us, Real Talk Baseball, give us a follow, and you can send us messages on there as well. So, Jasper, 3 drafts this year. That's pretty cool, man. I'm unfortunately only doing 2 this season, and both of the drafts that I'm doing are salary auction drafts. So, unfortunately, I don't get to do ADP for myself. There's Hobby. Let's see. Hopefully. What's up, dude?
What's up?
Oh, that's way better. Way better.
Oh, maybe the computer needed to update.
Yeah, probably.
What's going on, man?
Even when my computer doesn't need to update, I'm always getting on maybe an hour before the show, just so I can make sure that it's updated, and I won't have any hiccups during the show or anything. I learned that the hard way a couple times. So especially because I have 2 laptops here. Jasper says, "Hiya, Javier." I don't know if you can see these messages on your laptop as well.
Yeah.
All right, you ready, man? You ready to dive into this catcher position?
Let's do it.
All right, so my general thoughts towards the catcher position this year is we're actually a little bit deeper in the catcher position than we haven't been in previous seasons. There's a lot of catchers that have multi-eligibility. We see guys like Dalton Varsho that has outfield and catcher. It's actually kind of similar to Kyle Schwarber was a few seasons ago when he was with the Cubs. When he came up with the Cubs, he was actually drafted as a catcher and then transitioned into the outfield later on when David Ross became the catcher of the Cubs. And we're starting to see that, kind of here and there, catchers come up as either a catcher or a different position, and they start moving around the outfield. We see that with a lot of teams, not just at the catcher position, but at multiple positions all throughout the field. We see that with Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts came up as a second baseman with the Boston Red Sox, but unfortunately, when he came up into MLB, there was no spot for him because Dustin Pedroia was the starting second baseman for the Red Sox. So what did they do? They moved him to right field, see how he does out there. And sometimes these guys thrive. Mookie Betts is a gold glove in right field. There are multiple guys that can play multiple positions. We even saw that with Buster Posey, that instead of getting a day off at the catcher position, they would just move him over to first base just to kind of give his legs a rest, and still keep his bat in the lineup. And there are a pretty significant amount of catchers this season that are worthy of being in the lineup almost every day. We actually have a pretty good group this season. So what are your general thoughts about the catcher position this season?
Honestly, I always look at the catcher position as the tight end position of baseball. If you play fantasy football, then you know what I'm talking about. Like, usually it's very difficult to find a legit catcher get you good batting average, a good amount of home runs, good amount of doesn't strike out a lot. Your typical all-star catcher. This looks it looks promising. A lot of these guys, I would say maybe like in a year or two, they'll garnish a lot of it early in the rounds of fantasy baseball. But for me, it's probably a position that I would be looking for maybe mid rounds. I would say don't miss out on you know on somebody that could potentially break out throughout the season.
Okay. Um, so let's go ahead and jump into ADP. Of the first catcher that we see getting taken off the board is JT Realmuto. JT Realmuto has actually been the number one catcher going in fantasy leagues ever since Buster Posey was not, that MVP caliber player that we used to see. Buster Posey back in the day actually used to go in the first round. And, then he started slowing down a little bit. Then it was like second round, third round. And then later on towards the end of his career, he wasn't even really being drafted anymore. So we are not there yet with JT Realmuto, but honestly, I can kind of see in the coming years, maybe 2-3 years from now, we can see JT Realmuto kind of falling off. He's 31 years old, which is actually a little bit old for a catcher. So they do start to slow down a bit. What's really going to help the catcher position, I think, this year, especially guys like this that have a really good bat, is the DH was introduced into the National League. So now, instead of just giving these guys the day off and having the backup catcher, fill in for them, a lot of these catchers are actually worthy of playing in the DH spot on some teams rather than just getting the day off. So they do get to rest their legs. They still get to keep on, trying to increase their counting stats and help out their team. I'd say there's a good like five or six catchers this season that we can see that might actually get a pretty big bulk of their starts at DH. Maybe 30 to 40 starts at DH. We saw that actually with Will Smith last year on the Dodgers. I believe he had like 30 something starts at DH and very little days off, like complete days off. So now it's going to be a little bit easier for these catchers, these high-end catchers, to actually score a lot more runs and possibly hit more home runs and RBI. So JT Realmuto going number one at the catcher position. His current ADP is 35. So that's right at the end of the third round, beginning of the fourth round. So I completely agree with this one. I don't see any signs of JT Realmuto slowing down yet. His sprint speed is still really good. He still has some decent pop in his bat. Last year was actually the best we've seen from JT Realmuto. He had his best career year so far. One of the reasons why I think that is why I think that he actually took a step up is because Bryce Harper ended up getting injured mid-season, and I feel like JT Realmuto kind of like took up that like captain role, the leader role that Bryce Harper kind of held in the clubhouse. He's the one that really like led the team to the World Series, led the offensive team to the World Series. He was a major part of that team, still is a major part of that team. Last season, he hit 22 home runs and had hit a career high 21 stolen bases. Yeah, that's incredible, especially from a catcher. Dude, in a categories league or in a roto league, that is so valuable. You know, it's really hard to find stolen bases. Maybe a little bit easier this year with the size of the base increase.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of a trivia. So how many catchers in MLB history, including JT Realmuto, have had a 2020 season, 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases?
How far are we going back?
Let's say MLB history, as long as they've been counting stats. I know you don't know, but let's take a guess.
Trying to think of
another fast catcher.
Yeah,
because there hasn't really been a lot, right?
Yeah, exactly. Damn, that's tough. Shit. Boo, you got me. You got me, bro.
So,
like, I can't even guess. That's how bad it is.
So Jasper is guessing 3, and he's actually close. He went a little bit over. It's actually only 2. So JT Realmuto is the second catcher in MLB history to get a 20 homer, 20 steal season. The first being Pudge Rodriguez. So he was actually the first one to ever reach the 2020 mark. And we actually saw his son, Pudge Rodriguez's son, pitch a couple seasons ago. He's not like a high-end pitcher, in the last couple seasons or whatever, but he did play on the Giants. I don't know what team he's on now. He's kind of like on the back burner now. I believe he was a starter for the Giants, and now he's a relief pitcher. I don't know if he's still with the Giants or not, but it's crazy to see how you can see like Pudge Rodriguez. Like everyone knows who Pudge Rodriguez is, right? And all-star catcher, former Gold Glove behind the plate and all that. And his son, actually made it to the Major League Baseball, which is an accomplishment, but didn't really go anywhere with that. So
these are big shoes to fill.
yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So anything on JT Realmuto that you want to add?
No, I think he's definitely the consensus #1 pick. There might be a couple of guys that come close, but he's probably in the league of his own right now. I could kind of see the decline a little bit, but as of right now, he's just your #1. He's got to be.
So you got him #1 in points leagues and in categories leagues?
Yeah. I think it's yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that anyone can replicate the kind of production that we see from him. There are some other catchers that do come close. We've got some power in some lineups from the catcher position. We have really good lineups out there where there's a lot more chances of runs and RBI. But because JT Realmuto is so good, he actually hits in the top of the Phillies lineup as well. So it's not just that he's a good hitter. He's also getting a lot more opportunities, a lot more at-bats, a lot more plate appearances. And he doesn't strike out that often. He does strike out a little much. He's at a 21.2%. But because the batting average is so good, he hit 276 last year, right in line with his expected batting average of 275. Hits the ball pretty decently hard at a 90.3 exit velocity. So in a ballpark like Citizens Bank, that's known as a hitter's ballpark, we're going to see JT Realmuto continue to hit a lot of doubles, a decent amount of home runs. I'd say he's still a pretty safe bet for another 2020 season, 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases. And
especially with the increase of the size of the bags now. It's
yeah, exactly. And the Phillies coming off a World Series run, I feel like it kind of like kickstarted them into seeing like what type of production they can actually have. I feel like the Phillies players themselves didn't really see them making it too far into the playoffs, and when they actually like got that wild card spot and just kept on winning, it was like magic in Philadelphia. And unrelated note, that magic kept on going with the Eagles this year. Unfortunately, neither one of those teams were able to get the championship out of it. But, dude, that type of season, being able to go to the playoffs and showing what you can do, and that being like without your number one player in Bryce Harper, it's like it really shows the type of determination that this team has in general. And I think that we've seen basically the ceiling for JT Realmuto, and hopefully the ceiling doesn't come any closer to the ground this season coming up.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, so moving on to number 2. So in current ADP, JT Realmuto was at 35. The second in line is Dalton Varsho at number 53. Now, I really feel like a lot of people drafting Dalton Varsho a little bit earlier this season than they have in previous seasons is really because of the park change. Rogers Center is a little bit better hitting ballpark than Chase Field in Arizona, and he's going to a much better lineup.
Yeah.
So thoughts on Dalton Varsho?
Yeah, I was as we were setting up, I was asking. I did not know that he was on the same team as Kirk.
So yeah, he's on the same team as Alejandro Kirk, who is also on this list of the top 12 catchers. I honestly think that this is going to be the last season that Dalton Varsho actually has catcher eligibility, though. Toronto Blue Jays are looking at Dalton Varsho to be their starting left fielder from now on. He's a young dude. He's only 26. He has some good legs on him. Last season, he had 16 stolen bases. So just like JT Realmuto, he actually he has some speed out there on the base paths, which he's shown in the outfield as well. Decent pop in his bat, 27 home runs. So 27 home runs and you're hitting for the Diamondbacks. What type of ceiling can we see for him playing in Toronto, being in a better lineup?
And a better lineup.
Yeah, playing in Canada, playing in the thinner air, without, the detriment of the humidor at Chase Field. The Diamondbacks had the humidor installed at their stadium a few seasons ago, and we saw a pretty drastic drop in home runs after that happened. So now, him moving over to a really good lineup, he's joining guys like Vlad, Bo Bichette. There's so many good guys in the lineup that he's going to be hitting around. I don't know what the projected lineup is for him because, he's going to a new team. But because of the powerhouse that the Blue Jays are, they might actually they're contending for the number one spot in the AL East this season. That's for sure. They're trying to knock Houston off their ass, and hopefully they can. I'd love to see Toronto win the pennant this year and possibly go to the World Series.
That'd be awesome. They got so much. They got so many young guys on there, and they've kept that nucleus together for a while already. I feel like last year they probably underperformed a little bit, but that team is exciting, dude. That team is exciting.
Yeah, honestly, I thought they were going to make it a lot further in the playoffs than they did.
Yeah, I did too.
But those damn Astros, man, they keep on winning.
Fuck them guys.
Right, exactly. So in my personal rankings, I don't have Dalton Varsho as number 1. I understand, 27 home runs. That's amazing. 16 stolen bases. Now, the only thing that I worry about with Dalton Varsho moving over to Toronto is they have depth where the Diamondbacks did not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Varsho played catcher and left field last season with the Diamondbacks, and we saw that because the Diamondbacks desperately needed him in their lineup. Now, going over to the Blue Jays, you have Brandon Belt that was just signed, and he's going to be probably one of the primary DHs for the team, along with Vlad probably getting some starts at DH and kind of Alejandro Kirk. Alejandro Kirk is probably going to play DH a lot. They actually have two catchers as well, in addition to Dalton Varsho, the third one being Danny Jansen, who, if Alejandro Kirk wasn't on the Toronto Blue Jays, Danny Jansen would definitely be the number one catcher on that team. So unfortunately, he's not going to be in the top 12, as a lot of people thought that he was going to be, something big. He was a top prospect in the catcher position, and he just didn't pan out the way that a lot of people thought. I actually had him as a sleeper last season, but now with what we saw from Kirk last season and Dalton Varsho joining the team, Brandon Belt joining the team, I just really think that we're probably not going to see anything from Danny Jansen, anything close to what we thought we were going to.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of depth. You don't really see a catcher position that deep, because even then, Jansen's not a bad catcher to have on your bench. But you got Kirk and you got Varsho, like studs, man. Like at
now,
that position, yeah.
If Alejandro Kirk, if for some reason he gets hurt or something, we could definitely see a lot more at bats coming for Danny Jansen. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. If you hear about any injuries for Alejandro Kirk, just quickly go and grab up Danny Jansen as fast as you can. So he is Dalton Varsho is the number 2 catcher going off the board at ADP 53. So my personal number 2, who's only going about 5 or 6 spots after Dalton Varsho, is Will Smith for Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah.
Will Smith, I really think he's going into his age 27 season. And what do I always say about age 27, man? He's going to hit that man strength season. And, 24 home runs last season. I really think that we haven't seen the best of Will Smith yet. I feel like his ceiling is just so much higher. And, we've seen him progress as a rookie, coming into this season now. He's going to be hitting in the 3-hole in the Dodgers lineup because of the guys that the Dodgers kind of just let go. Trey Turner ended up going to the Phillies, and Justin Turner went to the Red Sox. So that's already 2 guys that were higher in the lineup. We're used to seeing Will Smith bat 5th or 6th in the lineup. Now we're actually going to see him hit number 3. Well, that's at least the projected lineup, behind guys like Mookie Betts and probably Freddie Freeman. So those are going to be the 1, 2, 3 punch. And then guys like JD Martinez and Max Muncy hitting behind Will Smith. Lots of run opportunities and lots of RBI opportunities. So I actually have Will Smith as my number 2 catcher going right before Dalton Varsho. The ADP doesn't reflect that. I feel like the only thing that lacks in his game is stolen bases. But if you're playing in a points league, stolen bases aren't really worth much, 1 point for a stolen base. So it's not as important as getting on base, and Will Smith getting on base at a 343 last season. His batting average was kind of low. It was at a 260 with an expected batting average of 257. So right in line right there. He didn't really have much good luck in batting average, but he didn't have any bad luck either. Almost 100 points higher, his OBP. So the Dodgers know how to take walks, man. We've seen that from Max Muncy and Justin Turner and, all these veterans from the Dodgers lineup for years. And Will Smith is right in line with them, man. they take those sabermetrics really into account. If
Yeah.
these guys know that they can't hit an outside pitch, they don't swing on it. If they know they can't hit an inside pitch, they don't swing on it. So got some good coaching and some good things happening in the Dodgers lineup, as we've seen from past seasons and seasons to come. So so we've gone through 1, 2, and 3 so far: JT Realmuto, Dalton Varsho, and Will Smith. So I have Realmuto, Will Smith, and then Varsho. Any thoughts on that?
No, you took the words right out of my mouth, dude. I would definitely put Will Smith as a number 2. I just think he's so clutch, man. Like when you need a hit from this guy, he hits. If you need him to get on base, he'll get on base, whether it's a walk, whether it's a hit, whether it's a freaking bomb in the bottom of the ninth. We've seen what the guy can do.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised, in the next year or two, he takes that number 1 spot from JT, man. Honestly.
Yeah, I would not be surprised either.
Surprised at all.
And another thing that I really love about Will Smith is his power. He's a righty bat, and his power comes off of righty pitchers. So he sees righties and lefties very well, but his power swing comes off of that inside pitch, and he just bombs it to left field, dude. Yep. I love what I'm seeing from Will Smith going into this man strength year. I really think that we could see him take another step up. And this is actually the catcher that I'm targeting in my drafts. I'm hoping to get in the auction leagues. Unfortunately, he's going to come with a pretty heavy price tag because, everyone knows his value. Whether you value him as I do or even just a little bit less, counting stats are still going to be there. Last season, he had 53 extra base hits, which is amazing in a points league. 68 runs and 87 RBI. I believe he actually had the most RBI out of any catcher last season with 87, and that's hitting in the 5 and 6 hole. Now he's going to be hitting in the 3 hole.
Dude,
so the one downside that I do see is that because the Dodgers signed JD Martinez last season, Will Smith had 24 starts at DH. So now JD Martinez is probably going to take those DH starts away from him. So we might see a few fewer games from Will Smith, but because he's moving up in the lineup, we're going to see that extra at bat on most games.
Nope.
All right, moving on to number 4, we have the rookie Adley Rutschman. Current ADP is at 66. Last season, he hit 254 with an expected batting average of 248, an on-base percentage of 362, 108 points higher than his batting average, an OPS of 807. Doesn't hit the ball especially hard at 87.9 miles an hour, but the launch angle's there, 15.6 degree launch angle. So we should be able to see a lot of extra base hits and some home runs from this guy. 470 plate appearances last year. He hit 13 home runs, had 49 extra base hits, but he plays for the Orioles. What are your thoughts?
I actually have him as my sleeper this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He started off really, really slow, and everybody was like, "Oh man, like this dude was supposed to be the big thing and whatnot." And people tend to forget, like once you hit the big leagues, it's a totally different ball game. You have to adjust, to the speed of the game, and I think that. With the skill set that he has, he could definitely be their guy in Baltimore. Baltimore got a good farm system. They got a couple of guys coming up from the minors, probably this year, if not middle of the season. But I think this guy's gonna be the catalyst of that team, and they should be able to get into the playoffs. And I think he's going to be one of the reasons why they get in there.
Yeah, it's highly possible. I think the only problem with the Orioles, it's definitely not their bats because they got some solid bats. They just have some garbage pitching.
Yep.
But in what's their ballpark called? Camden Yards. So in Camden Yards, they did increase the size of left field. I believe they went back like 23 feet, something like
Yeah,
that. So it's going to be
I
a
heard
lot
about that.
harder for right-handed bats to be able to hit the home runs. Going along with what you said in the beginning of the season, so when he made his debut in May, in 39 at bats, he only batted 179
Hmm.
with a 273 OBP. So OBP is still good.
Yeah,
He's not striking out a lot, but yeah, that batting average was lacking. But from June to the end of the season, the lowest he hit was 241. So he definitely
turned it up.
started getting, yeah, he turned it up a bit.
Hmm.
Before the All Star break, he batted 222. After the All Star break, it was at a 275. So if
Crazy.
we can see more of what we saw after the All Star break, hitting more of like a 275 bat, he definitely deserves to go, number 4 or even possibly higher, like you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. When did they? Trying to remember what or around what time they brought him up, but damn, I was gonna say something and I just totally slipped my mind. It might come back to me right now, but yeah, I definitely agree. He could potentially be that third. He could probably take that third spot on that list if I wanted to. I would personally probably put him at 3 instead of Varsho. I'm not a big Varsho guy.
Well, like I said, next season it's probably going to change anyway because Varshaw's probably not
Yeah,
going to have catcher eligibility anymore either. So next year we're going to be talking about Dalton Varsho on the outfield preview rather than the
yeah,
catcher preview.
true.
So most likely Adley Rushman is going to be in the top 3 next season, I would assume.
Yep, yep, I agree.
I wonder where he's going to bat in the lineup.
Mm, maybe 4.
I don't know. He
No.
is a little bit of an older rookie. Last year was his first season in the majors, and he's already going into his age 25 season. So between 25 and 30 is when these guys really hit their prime. So
Hmm.
I like that sleeper pick on Adley Rushman. We might actually
Yep,
be able to see his man strength come a little bit early.
yep.
And in 470 plate appearances, he had 13 home runs. He should have a decent amount more than that. I'm assuming because he came up in May, he's going to have an extra month and a half of the season to be able to play and be on the roster full time.
So that's what I was gonna say. I think him having a full spring training, full year with the team, you know, get all the the cobwebs out and whatever and whatnot, and I think he's gonna be a much better player this year than he was last year. So that is definitely my sleeper pick for this season.
All right, moving on to ADP. The next in ADP, we have Salvador Perez. Salvador Perez is going at ADP 76, and last season he had a injury riddled season. Unfortunately, we saw a huge breakout from Salvador Perez in 2021. Do you remember a couple seasons ago we were talking about Salvador Perez maybe making a comeback because he slipped in his house and over some luggage and then ended up breaking a bone,
Yeah,
and he was out of the
yeah,
season for a while. I believe that was in 2020, 2019, something like that. But then we saw him take a huge leap ahead in 2021 and become basically the number 1 catcher in baseball that
yep.
season. Since then, he's had a couple thumb injuries. He's had multiple injuries last season. I believe he had a concussion as well. So that kind of like put a damper on his season. He did have 473 plate appearances, only hit 23 home runs. I really feel like if we can get a full season out of Salvador Perez in a Royals lineup that doesn't really have a lot of stars showing, they're not going to take any at bats away from him. He's going to be their starting catcher and their primary DH. So we should see about 550 to 600 plate appearances from Salvador Perez. No speed. This guy looks like a refrigerator running down the base paths,
That's like
waddling
Tom
back
Brady,
and forth.
Peyton Manning right there.
But this guy has some big power. He's a big dude. He's 6'3", 255 pounds. He is going into his age 32 season, so he's probably going to play DH a lot more often than catcher, I would assume, just to keep him healthy. But
Yeah.
he's still going to have that catcher eligibility for a couple years to come. Batting average was at 254, so he's not going to kill you in batting average. And now, without the defensive shifts this coming up season, we might be able to see a little bit of an uptick in his batting average. Let's call him like a 265, maybe 10 points higher. On base percentage sucks. He strikes out a lot. The on base percentage last season was a 292, only 40 points higher than his batting average. He had 18 walks compared to his 109 strikeouts, and that's with missing about 2 months of the season. Damn. So give him a full season, he'll probably have about 140 to 150 strikeouts, maybe about 30 walks. So points leagues, I really don't recommend Salvador Perez. I think that he'll definitely hit you some home runs once in a while, but he's not in the greatest lineup, so a lack of runs and RBI opportunities for him, and just no speed on the base path. So that's another reason why his run production is probably going to suffer as well, since he's not a very good base runner. He'll hit some singles, some doubles, won't get any triples. I can almost guarantee that. I really feel like most of the time when he actually scores, it's probably going to be because of his home runs. As we saw last season, he had 48 runs, and 23 of those were off of home runs.
Yeah, it's funny. I have him as my bust for this season.
Ooh. Nice. I'm all talking shit about Salvador Perez, and then you come up with the bust.
No, I feel like last season, with all the injuries coming, I think I kind of see it as his decline. You know what I mean? He's like one of your older catchers. But the fact that he started to get injured is concerning. Yeah, he's a big dude. Yeah, he can probably get you a bunch of home runs, but with everything that you said, it just tells me that he's probably on a decline for me. He's got MJ Melendez knocking at the door, and that was one of their prospects. That's one of their guys that you know they're banking on after Perez. So if I feel like if he doesn't give you like a good season this year, you might see more of Melendez. Either this season, maybe, who knows? Depending on if Perez can stay healthy.
Yeah, I think if Melendez can show up and show what everyone's expecting from him. Now he's on this top 12 list as well.
Yeah.
So we are expecting a lot from MJ Melendez, and both of them kind of have the same downside with the lineup factor and the ballpark factor. It's not the greatest ballpark to hit in either, but I think Salvador Perez, because of his power that he has in his bat, it's definitely going to keep him in the lineup at least this season. Probably going to play more DH, especially with, like you said, with MJ Melendez knocking on their door.
No, yep, I agree, man.
All right, moving on. That was Salvador Perez at ADP 76. The next in line, we have Wilson Contreras going at ADP 105. Wilson Contreras, big lineup upgrade, possibly a park upgrade. I mean, playing in Chicago for so many seasons, you got the wind blowing in, you got the wind blowing out. You never know. It's always day by day what we see with the wind factor in Chicago. I'm sure Jasper, who's watching, knows all about that. Being a White Sox fan, it's the same. That they don't call it the Windy City for nothing. So he was a benefactor of some good luck, and he was the benefactor of some bad luck. So we'll see what kind of season he can actually put together in St. Louis. I really believe that they're looking at Wilson Contreras to be their next Yadier Molina. Now, there's no way that anyone can live up to those shoes. Yadier Molina is going down as one of the greatest catchers ever. Defensively. But offensively, Wilson Contreras is a much better hitter than Yadier Molina is. Yadier Molina, I remember in his prime, he was a solid, close to 300 bat. Didn't really have a lot of pop, though. Wilson Contreras is kind of the opposite of that. He has much more pop, and he's not really a batting average specialist. Last season, he batted 243 with an expected batting average of 256, but his on-base percentage is about 100 points higher. So he does take some walks, had 45 walks compared to his 103 strikeouts. 22 home runs in Chicago. So I don't really see him either downgrading. I don't see him downgrading at all, moving over to St. Louis. Somewhat of a lineup upgrade. So possible more run and RBI opportunities for him. But I really think that we've seen the best of Wilson Contreras. He's going into his age 30 season. And I think he just is who he is. A solid 250 to 260 bat with about 20 home runs. Any thoughts on Wilson Contreras?
No, I agree. Maybe the part upgrade might a little bit, but every season you've kind of seen the same production from him. So I mean, unless he, breaks out like unless he takes advantage of the park upgrade, I still see him as being that dude that we've known to know. We've known him from the Cubs when he was playing with the Cubs.
Fine, dude. Okay. All right. So that was Wilson Contreras at ADP 105. So personally, I don't have Wilson Contreras as my number 6, even though he in ADP he's at number 6. I actually have him at number 7, and my number 6 we'll talk about a little bit later because he's not coming up anytime soon in ADP. So moving on to ADP 7 in line, that would be Alejandro Kirk at ADP 106. So he's only going one spot behind Wilson Contreras. And I don't really understand this one too much. Like, Alejandro Kirk is a really short dude with a big body and can smack the hell out of a ball. But the problem with him is, even though he hits the ball extremely hard, his launch angle is just crap. He hits a decent amount of line drives and a lot of ground balls. Doesn't put the ball in the air enough to be an elite fantasy option. If he can get that launch angle up to in the teens, 13, 14 degrees, I really think that we can see a huge breakout for Alejandro Kirk. But he's only 24 years old. And the Toronto Blue Jays really trust him to be so Jasper just called him the roly-poly. Yeah, he basically is, man. Let's see what else he said. He said, sure thing, it's windy here now, 15 to 20 miles per hour. I'm about 2 hours east of Chi-Town. And yes, sir, the winds across the Great Lakes are brutal. We saw what was going on in Chicago over the winter. I'm so glad that I don't live anywhere near there. The world is crazy right now, man. I don't know if it's global warming. I'm not a scientist. I'm not putting my thoughts out on that at all. I just think that crazy times are here, and I don't think that there's going to be any kind of stop to that. I think the weather is out of control. We finally had some decent weather lately. Dude, it's been super windy around here, too, the last couple of days in the Philadelphia area. We had some 30-mile-an-hour winds. Dude, I had to go chase down my trash cans like 4 times. Yeah. They kept on blowing away. So I'm like, fuck this. I grabbed like a big rock that I have, like that's just some broken concrete, and I threw it in the trash can, make sure it wouldn't fly away anymore. I was getting pissed, man.
Yeah, it was pretty damn windy out here. You could hear like the house kind of creaking and shit. And
oh yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
I know. We're not used to that, man. I mean, the worst winds that we ever saw back in LA was the Santa Ana winds, which were maybe 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour at most. But these 30-mile-an-hour winds, they're freaking crazy. I play disc golf a lot. I don't know if you know what disc golf is. It's like frisbee golf, you know?
Yeah.
And just the wind, it's just been so out of control. I haven't been able to go. So I've been getting my ass in the gym and trying to take care of my body now, man. I'm getting old, dude. I'm getting old. I'm gonna be 40 in a couple months. I know you're there already, old man.
Shut up. Hey, as long as I don't feel it, I'm okay, man.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. One of the good compliments that I always get from people is they don't realize that I'm 39. They always think I'm like 35, 36.
Yo,
and I'm like, yeah, I'm 35, 36. You got it.
I get this weird look when I tell people that I have 4 fucking kids, man. They
Oh,
look
yeah.
at me like, how old are you? I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, man. When I talk about that I have a 16-year-old kid and he's starting to drive, they look at me and they're like, you have a 16-year-old? I mean, I did start a little bit early too. He was born when I was 23. So,
dude, I have a 21-year-old. So,
oh my God, you just aged yourself right there.
It's crazy, man.
You know what though? I'm kind of looking forward to that. You know, my kid 5 years from now being 21, being able to take him out to a bar and have a beer with him and you know, just look at him as the man he is rather than like the boy that he is right now. You know, it's exciting to see that. So Jasper over here is calling us youngsters. I don't know about that, man. I mean, I feel
take that compliment.
Decent right now, but I don't feel like no youngster, you know. He said he's 50 right now. I see his picture right there with his, what is that, 3 boys? I can't see because of the YouTube logo. I see 2 boys, the big one in the middle and the 2 small ones on the left and the right. I got 2 boys myself. Javi got a little army over there at his house with the little general.
Oh, man. That's the captain right there.
Yeah. He's a handful, I bet.
Yeah, he is.
All right, moving on. So we covered Alejandro Kirk, hits the ball hard, doesn't have a good launch angle. But so the really good thing about Alejandro Kirk is his plate discipline. This guy does not strike out. He actually had more walks than strikeouts in 2022, 63 walks and 58 strikeouts. Damn. 58 strikeouts and 541 plate appearances. That is fucking insane, man.
Yeah, it is.
So this guy, Alejandro Kirk, he gets a boost up in my book in points leagues. Categories leagues, not so much. But when you can reach base at 372 as a catcher, you know, that's incredibly valuable.
Yep, I agree.
Especially in the lineup that especially in the lineup that Alejandro Kirk is in, you know, surrounded by all those like just young studs, you know?
Yeah.
All right, moving on to next in ADP is the guy that we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, MJ Melendez, going at ADP number 12, which is about 6 spots behind Alejandro Kirk. So if you're starting to notice this trend, it kind of all started with Wilson Contreras. So Salvador Perez was at ADP 76, and now Wilson Contreras is at ADP 105. That's a full 30 spots later. Now we're moving into Alejandro Kirk, Wilson Contreras, Alejandro Kirk, and MJ Melendez all going within 10 spots from each other. So now MJ Melendez going at ADP number 112. Really young guy, 24 years old. Had 534 plate appearances last season, 18 home runs, only 2 stolen bases, so we're not going to see any speed from this guy. His rookie season was last year, so we got kind of a taste of what we can see from MJ Melendez. I believe the only thing that was lacking from him, other than the stolen bases, was just the batting average, dude. He only batted 212. And that's not a very good fantasy option as a starter. I do like that you have him as like a breakout candidate. I could see that also. I have Adley Rutschman as my breakout. We saw somewhat of the breakout last season, but I could see Adley Rutschman, like you were talking about, moving up in the rankings and going, even passing JT Realmuto.
Yeah.
So MJ Melendez, 217 batting average, expected batting average of 237. So he had a little bit of bad luck, but not much. Now his on base percentage was 313. That's almost 100 points higher than his batting average. So he does walk a lot. Had 66 walks compared to his 131 strikeouts. Has some decent pop. 18 home runs. Had 42 extra base hits. So he didn't play a full season last year. He came up a little bit after the season opened. So he'll have a few more at bats this season. Thoughts on MJ Melendez? Any more thoughts than what you've already said?
Well, I think I don't have him as my breakout. He could potentially break out. Um, and I feel like if he wants to prove that he can take the mantle away from Perez, it would be this season. I know he's young, but if he wants to take over Perez's spot, I think this season would be a good way to start. Um, you're right, like the batting average isn't very attractive. But other than that, I think his skill set it'll show that he can be that guy once Perez, takes a seat.
So pre All Star break, MJ Melendez hit 217 with 9 home runs. Post All Star break, MJ Melendez hit 218 with 9 home runs. So we basically saw the same the same guy before the All Star break that we saw after the All Star break. So I don't know if we're really ready to see the breakout from MJ Melendez yet. It's highly possible because of the skill set. I think he needs a little bit more tutelage from Salvador Perez.
Yeah.
I really feel like Salvador Perez is the type of mentor that could really help MJ Melendez. So I'm really glad those two are on the same team.
Yeah.
Salvador Perez is not, a standout in batting average either, but a 250 batting average is definitely a lot better than a 217 batting average.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
we'll see. He did have a good first month of the season. When he came up into the league in May, his batting average was 259 with 4 home runs. That was basically his best month of the year. He also had a 253 batting average with 4 home runs in the month of July. So right when it started warming up pretty good. So he had some a mix of some good and some bad. But ultimately, at the end of the season, he just wasn't as productive as a lot of people hoped. Dynasty leagues, go after this guy because we can definitely see a breakout coming in the next few years.
Definitely.
All right. So moving on to now, my sleeper is the next guy that we're going to talk about. No, not yet. I'm sorry. It's still 3 spots away. So the next in ADP is Sean Murphy going at ADP 126. Now, Sean Murphy gets a bit of a lineup upgrade moving over from Oakland over to the Braves. A lot of people see him breaking out this season. I don't see it, man. I see a 250 batting average with maybe 15 to 18 home runs. A lot of people are expecting him to have a bit of an upgrade when it comes to counting stats. I guess maybe, but the problem is in Oakland, he got the bulk of all the starts at the catcher position, and now he's going to be maybe not competing with Travis d'Arnaud at the catcher position, but d'Arnaud is most likely going to be clipping at his heels. Sean Murphy is definitely the better defensive catcher, and I feel like the Braves trading away William Contreras to be able to get Sean Murphy, I think they want to control the run game. With these bigger bases, they're expecting an influx of stolen bases, so Sean Murphy is definitely one of those great defensive catchers in the bigs right now. But I don't really see too much of an upgrade from him. So the current ADP on him is 126. I actually have him as number 11 in line, and I believe he is number 9 in ADP.
Yeah.
So thoughts on Sean Murphy?
Not really. He doesn't really catch my eye, honestly, even when he was in Oakland. Um, like you said, the park upgrade might help. But I think, like you said, they probably got him for defensive purposes. But yeah, I'm just like whatever on him.
Yeah, and you know what else too is the Braves have Marcell Ozuna, who is a defensive liability, and they also have Eddie Rosario, who is a defensive liability. Both of those guys play left field, so you're only going to be able to have one of those guys in left field at a time. The other guy is probably going to be DHing.
Yeah.
So those two are going to probably be getting the bulk of the DH lineup in the spot. So spot in the lineup. I'm sorry. So I don't really see Sean Murphy getting as many at bats in Atlanta that he did in Oakland. Now it's definitely a lineup upgrade, so less opportunities when it comes to his at bats. But I think maybe more opportunities to score some runs and RBI. So we'll see how the season kind of plays out for him. I'm not looking at Sean Murphy at all in my drafts. Moving on. So my number 6 is next. So I have the brother of Wilson Contreras, William Contreras, at my number 6 spot in my catcher rankings. And he is currently at the number 10 spot in ADP, going at 132. So that's 6 spots later than Sean Murphy.
Damn.
It's crazy how to have those guys just complete opposite, you know?
Yeah.
He's moving on from the Braves to the Brewers, so he's not going to be competing for the catcher position. You know, he was the backup to Travis d'Arnaud. d'Arnaud was an all-star last year, and William Contreras kind of just got pushed back because of Travis d'Arnaud, because of the type of catcher that he was. So now moving over to Milwaukee, I think that we're going to see somewhat of a breakout for William Contreras, which is why I have him at my number 6. And if you actually look at his minor league numbers and the numbers that he's had in the past couple seasons in Major League Baseball, they are extremely similar to Wilson Contreras, who's currently going at ADP number 7 in line. So I don't really see too much of a difference between William Contreras and Wilson Contreras other than age. William Contreras is 25 years old, so his best years are coming ahead. Last season, he had 20 home runs, 35 extra base hits. He batted .278. Expecting that batting average was .243. So he was a benefactor of a bit of good luck, but I'm still going to give him the benefit of the doubt, especially because we only saw 376 play appearances from William Contreras last season. I really feel like that's going to increase a lot now that he's not going to be, fighting for that catcher spot. He was definitely the backup last year. He's going to be the starting catcher this year.
Yeah, he's the guy. So
he is the guy.
He's the guy.
I think it's going to be somewhere between 500 to 600 plate appearances. So a lot more opportunities to just do what he does. And Javi's frozen.
The catcher last season.
What was that?
Who was the Brewers catcher last season?
I don't think it was anyone important. If I can't even remember who it was, I mean, we can find out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up real quick. If you want to say anything about William Contreras.
That's what I was getting to. The fact that he doesn't have anybody.
Victor Caratini.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So now Victor Caratini is definitely going to be the backup for William Contreras.
Yeah. So now that he doesn't have anybody basically trying to, take
in his way
the catcher spot. Yeah, he has a clear path to do what he's got to do. You know what I mean? So
yep.
I like that you got him up there that high though.
I do, man. He's actually my sleeper. going at ADP 132.
Oh, okay.
That's really late, man. I think he should be going closer to um, probably like in the early 100s. So he's going about 3 rounds later than where I would personally draft him. So I really like him. Hits the ball pretty hard, 90.4 exit velocity on average. Even with his very low launch angle of 6.1 degrees, he still had 20 home runs last season. You know, now hitting in a extremely favorable ballpark with the Brewers, I think that we could possibly see an increase in home runs as well, possibly 25. You know, those hard hit line drives can still go out too.
Yep. Yep. I like that pick.
All right, and now moving on to the number 11 at ADP, going at 166, we have Tyler Stevenson of the Reds. So Tyler Stevenson was kind of an afterthought. This season he's going super late in drafts. Last season he only had 6 home runs, but he only had 183 plate appearances. But he had a concussion. So let's see. I have it here. On April 20th, he had a concussion. He was out for 2 weeks. On June 10th, he had a right thumb injury. He was out for a month. He came back for 2 weeks, and then he injured his clavicle, and then he missed the rest of the season. So Tyler Stevenson was kind of poised to be a breakout last season. Everyone thought that he was going to, take a big leap ahead, but unfortunately, 3 different injuries kept him out for majority of the season. Only had 183 plate appearances. He's 26. He's a big freaking dude. He's 6'4", 225 pounds. Last season, he had a batting average of 319, which was heavily inflated. His expected batting average was only 260. So I could see a solid 275 hitter out of Tyler Stevenson, especially hitting in Great American Small Park. Look for him to get a lot of starts at catcher and probably a pretty decent amount of starts at DH as well, because the Reds don't really have the best lineup. They lost a lot of their big power hitters, Jesse Winker and Nick Castellanos. They don't have the best lineup in the world. So that's going to be a little bit of a hit for him in the runs and RBI category. But even though he doesn't hit the ball especially hard, 87.1 miles an hour, in Cincinnati, they actually have the number 2 ballpark when it comes to runs and home runs, right behind Coors Field. So it's basically a little league ballpark. Launch angle's decent at 11.1. He does strike out a lot, but if he can hit a solid 270 with like 25 home runs, which I definitely think is in the realm of possibilities for him, I really think that this guy could potentially break out and is another sleeper of mine as well. 166 ADP. I think that's very late. I could definitely see him rising in the ranks after this season. He's a former first-round pick, so they definitely saw something in him a few seasons ago. He's only 26 years old, so he's moving into his man strength years, moving into his prime. I could definitely see a big breakout for Tyler Stevenson coming soon.
Yeah. I'm not too familiar with Stevenson. I do remember that a lot of people were high on him. All them injuries, man, that sucks.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can stay healthy and we can see what he's got. Go on with the last one.
All right. So the last one that we have in our current ADP, going at 191, which is about 25 spots later than the former Tyler Stevenson, is Cal Raleigh. So now you're getting into like the catchers that no one wants. I really believe that the top 11 catchers are actually decent options, can be your starting catcher, and you should have no problems, whether they're they're really going to help you from guys like JT Realmuto, Will Smith, Adley Rushman, guys like that. There's a lot of young possible breakouts and sleepers that we have on our list from 11 and up. I don't really think Kyle Rowley is one of them. Now, we saw him hit a bunch of home runs. He had 27 home runs last season in only 415 plate appearances. He does play in a really good lineup with the Mariners, but the Seattle's not really the greatest place to hit. 27 home runs to be able to hit that in Seattle, that's pretty good. But I don't know. This is a all or nothing type of guy. His batting average last season was 211. Expected batting average was 216. On base percentage wasn't that much greater. He had 38 walks compared to his 122 strikeouts. It's really just the home runs that are holding him in the number 12 spot for catchers in ADP.
So for me, after 10, you can totally interchange a bunch of these guys that are coming up. I personally like Keibert Ruiz. I have him as my breakout. I know we haven't really seen his full potential yet, but I think, and he doesn't play on a great team, which kind of sucks. But they're really high on this guy, and the Dodgers were also high on him when they had him.
Yeah.
So, obviously they got Will Smith now, and I think he was in the Trey Turner trade, right?
Yes, he was.
So, the Nationals saw something in this guy, and hopefully he could put it together. But like these last 11, 12 pick. Like you can interchange. Like you still have d'Arnaud, which was an all-star last season. He's still out there.
The thing with d'Arnaud, because Sean Murphy's going to be taking at bats away from him, I think that's going to be the problem with him. But if something happens to Sean Murphy, d'Arnaud is the guy, so he'll definitely rise up in the ranks. Also,
what I'm saying is like you still got a bunch of other guys that you can probably plug in at the number 11, number 12 spot after Raleigh. I don't really know much about Raleigh, so I can't really speak on him, but there's a bunch of other dudes that are like even the catcher for the Mets, the guy that's coming up, Alvarez.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you still got a bunch of young guys that are coming up. And so like the bottom of this list doesn't really wow me. You can go depending on what kind of league you play in, fantasy baseball wise. You can take your pick out of the bunch that are after Contreras at number 10.
Yeah. You know I mean? Before you even started talking about Keibert Ruiz, I was actually thinking I'd much rather have Keibert Ruiz over Cal Raleigh. Now, maybe in a categories league, that's a little bit different because of the home runs, because you can't really expect more than maybe 10 home runs from a guy like Keibert Ruiz. He doesn't hit the ball very hard. He's a contact specialist, so he's going to put the bat on the ball a lot. But he puts the ball on the ground a lot, doesn't put it in the air a lot. His elite contact level is much more valuable in points leagues because he's going to get on base a lot more. It's going to be a lot of singles, a decent amount of doubles, but not much power, not much speed on the base paths either. So I still have Keibert Ruiz at my number 12, who's only going right after Cal Raleigh anyway. So it's really a wash between those two, depending on which one that you would rather take. Both of them are pretty young, Cal Raleigh being 26 and Keibert Ruiz being 24. I don't understand why Keibert Ruiz just doesn't hit the ball harder. He's a big dude, 6 foot, 220 pounds about, hits in a decent park. It seems like he just doesn't want to hit the ball hard. He's kind of like Joey Votto-esque, where he just kind of like chokes up, and just tries to make some solid contact on the ball, and that can work when you're playing in Cincinnati, because the
Yeah.
ball just flies out there. But Washington, it's not the worst ballpark, but it's also not the best
That's a great.
ballpark.
Yeah.
So, points leagues, I definitely like Caper Ruiz. I don't want him in a categories league. Not a lot of run and RBI opportunities, not a lot of home runs, no stolen bases. So, really, you're only getting batting average from that guy.
Right. I agree. Yeah. Yeah, but I would definitely put him there at number 12 instead of Raleigh.
Yep, I feel you on that one.
Yeah.
All right, so we are at the 1 hour and 10-minute mark in our show. I feel like we had a really good show today. We put out a lot of good information. That was our top 12 current ADP and, a mix of our personal rankings. If you guys have any questions about any positions, whether it's catcher, outfield, starting pitcher, whatever it may be, I know you guys have drafts coming up. You can ask us anything you like. Our email is realtalkbaseball@yahoo.com. You can also reach us at our Instagram. Just search Real Talk Baseball. A lot of times we'll do a deep dive. We had this template that I came up with, so we can, really go into each player and kind of dig and see what they've done in past seasons and come up with our own personal projections. So if there's any players that you want us to break down for you, we'd be happy to do that as well. So I'm Will Power, and thank you for joining me, Javi. This is Real Talk Baseball, and we're signing out. See you guys next Friday.
Later.